Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Twilight Prepper again. It's a little late even for me, but let's just say, looking at things here with how everything goes, I figured we'd go through Southeast Asia. Just in saying Colin's going after everybody or something, since it's a worldwide geographical conflict and that they're saying World War III is coming up. Here's the biggest entanglement that there is for World War III. It's a wonderful situation here. I know the artistry is a little bit down, and they'll say I'm cheap, but let us go through and try it. Here we have China. There's India. We've got these little countries over here, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Bhutan. Very important little places. Have their own isolated little religions, even if one is basically all Islamic, and are very much unto themselves, but very important to the world stage. I would say Sri Lanka, that's out here just past everything, has been on the world stage because they didn't have any fertilizer. Russia being the main exporter of fertilizer, and Sri Lanka kind of will influence all of this. You can say it's sanctions. You can say it's they didn't want to do that. Their government even has been put on mainstream media as it is one of their decisions to try and make it more, how should we say, better plants that are stronger and able to get more nutrients over successive generations. Inevitably, this would lead to a situation that has just happened over there. But here we go. We have just been told, this one here is Hong Kong, that little bitty part right there, if you can't see it. And here's Vietnam, there's so much. Here's Laos and Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, just a little part, something else right here. And there's East Timor and a bunch of little islands in Australia. And then we have Burma. One kingdom not to be ever subjugated by European. And then we have the Philippines. Kind of don't like the USA, kind of do. It's iffy, and they've been in kind of like a constant civil war. Mussolini's off of four of their different branches. One claims the Western Islands with this one group. I know in particular from out west, and we'll not go into them. There's another group with the drug dealer group that, let's just put it this way, they liked hunting people along the checkpoints and use a lot of stuff and hide with their multiple marriages in the Islamic population that's heavy in the south. You've got a lot of German World War I mafia, Mussolini families that really liked it because the mayoral system lets them cover the politics and make a mafia country. And then in the north, we have what shall be called the meat men. And if you've ever been up there to Davos City, you go, there's a lot of stuff there. And if they want to replace the family, they pretty much can. Then you have kind of like not Davos City, Manila up there, that everyone's really cool with in the one government place, and they all kind of go back and forth and are always sitting there. Well, anyway, they hope to be taken into China's sphere of influence, and then their lines will come over here and they'll have a homeland in whatever. That being said, over World War II, okay, there we've gotten that out of the way. Calling it as Nazi conspiracies. Oh, wait, one more thing. We were getting really cheap oil from East Timor all the way so far. California is still not written on there. Just so that we could have cheap oil given there. Cheaper than Russian Luke oil. And they all blamed the CIA for overthrowing it so we could have our own private little oil reserve there. Well, we would fly in. Basically somewhere around here we have a base, or else here Or else we come off the aircraft carriers that are big enough now to put 8 C-130s on. And they'd fly over here. And then we could refuel here because it's cheaper to refine it here. So we fly them off from over there, hit Guam and some of the others, and America Samoa, pop over in here, get the cheap oil, and then we had rights to fly, over into Afghanistan. Well, this group did get overthrown by Nazis over here in like the Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore area. And they arrested the parliament member and everything else, had them packed up all the way up here against the mountains. And the thing that we have as an ongoing problem here that's in Knoxville is infiltration into the military by known Axis power groups. See, all these armistices, this one here being with European colonialism, Vietnam, that's why we were able to say the armistice reconstruction of Vietnam was over with and part of World War I. This here, openly World War II. We're not really going to be able to say the German sphere of influence up here, where they had a Nike net in each one of those sphere of influences. We can only know the one about the city's name sake. Really did do anything down here. Singapore, its own little kind of like tax capital, tax haven for China, separate from the rest of everything, is its own private city. We'll be getting to that real quickly here because it comes up with Pete Hegseth and all that other stuff and things over in there, which I know they'll say it's not really true, or else it's, I found the one avenue that they've never looked at. Anyway, with them taking over the government, leaving it the same and everything else, and basically running it with the Nazis that were infiltrated into the military and stuff, kind of gave us a little bit of scare. And two, we had to say quickly, objectives completed. Fell back. Now we're over here in this. Now, here's going to be a little bit of history lesson, worse than anything, because I know history is horrible. China, at the start of World War II and at its end, was called the Oriental Imperial Kingdom of Formosa. Formosa still lived here until Richard Milhous Nixon went over and made open politics with China. Taiwan then became the Republic of Taiwan, and the royal family was sent into obscurity and basically was like they're there, but they don't get any money unless they have a real tax write-off, so on and so on. Just so China wouldn't invade. We say we will protect Taiwan and any of those groups there and everything else because that's who was genocidal from Japan. Now we're kind of being like, we don't really, then we might have to go somewhere and kill people that were on the lists out here. And they might be Jewish. And we're not going to be part of the Human Rights Coalition. Well, okay. Sort of. Not really trying to say anything. When you shoot them and they take them to the autopsy room, it's like, oh my, they look, look, sorry, see? Right there, obvious. And two, Japan was coming in here, and, China was one of the largest populated areas of Jewish people. You can be like, oh, they eat the whatever. Just they made up DNA. Even if DNA is made up, and one day we found out they just convinced us that there was little spirals in our things, it meant we had to be killed. Okay? Conspiracy theories are satisfied. There's no DNA. So there was nobody here. Nor was any of that with like them being born without a foreskin over their stuff, and Christians just going around lying really good and going, through blood and human sacrifice and the blood of the infants, we will all be bound together. Like at Terek Nor, when they took it over from Abraham and his family, they had to make the Hebrews and escaped slavery and cannibalism that is going to be done to them. With all of this being said, oh yeah, and they took the firstborns too. I suppose they kept them young. We are going to be looking at not really so much China and the water incursions here, but look at all these beautiful little choke points. That's why it's so hard once the Japanese got here in World War II to fight anybody. And once this is done with this area here, and the Malinese and Taiwanese governments, or Thailand governments, sorry, have all had their stuff with the infiltration, overthrow, and thrown in the prison and everything, they'll probably move up into here within the next 5 to 10 years and force this king to be capitulated to a Christian power. After all, there's the access roads through here that let us supply China through its back door and not have to go to the main part of the Himalayas. So, all the Nazis from here, the Khmer Rouge, and one other guy, Pol Pot, if you've ever heard of that, and then the people who are just kind of Nazis and profiting from the Soviet Union, China, and everybody else on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and all that, you know, middleman, as long as you kill them off, you ain't got no real problems. Other than political dogma and who is best at killing off the middleman. It's really what it all is about, I think. At least way back then. They'll be knocking this off here in the next 5 to 10 years. And then that spills over into here. And then it's like, you know, as one guy, he got pulled away from me and going on about how it was more than just Hotel Mumbai. And I'm like, you have no idea what I heard about it back in the 80s. Literally. My mom started talking to somebody and left me in this movie theater. And this cartoon movie just set this one guy off. And then I got stuck at this other guy's like farmhouse for some reason while they were going out to buy some beans. And it's like they were half bushel short. So they went out there and mom picked beans with whoever and some other stuff. And, you know, people just started running their mouth again. And it's like they all got to go through their brainstorming. And it's really interesting when each one of these, like, Roman principalities opened up, like Andorra, and all of this kind of, like, happened here. And France used to look at Polynesia as its heaven, and France used to be called something else that was like Polynesia. Anyway, kind of like Spain and the Iberian used to be called Floridia. And Portugal is called the land of the, can't remember if it's sea flowers or else the seeds of flowers that go off into the sea or something else like that. And return on adventure and stuff. Anyway, we're going to go with this Philippines flight that came out and disappeared here 5 or 6 years. Maybe 7 or 8. And they talk about it and everything else, but there's a lot of new aerial things in there, which is going to come up on a domestic issue. They have such big pirate fleets out here. This is the biggest area of piracy in the world. Everybody goes on about Africa and about how they can do stuff with people who are completely unarmed and use their quick little runabout boats to overtake these huge carriers and stuff. But over in here, these little islands, these checkpoints, this right here is the worst area for piracy. I mean, literally, they will be holding up super yachts and super tankers, and it's like they know when each one of the powers has their people there by it, and it's like, well, we got them stuck over here, we got them stuck over here. This is the one's Chinese, China's right here, or China's down here, or on this side. And then this area right here, coming around the bottom, is even more dangerous, even though you're like, well, Australia can protect them. And it's like, not really. And it's like, each one of these areas. They have such big things from where they've taken super tankers and stuff that they could have landed that plane on there and then put it out on autopilot, jumped out of it, and taken it all. And it just looked like it came apart and washed up somewhere. Just to get 2 or 3 people with a really good thing for computers. And as it is, if that's true, with them taking here, that gives them one of the largest naval piracy fleets in the entire area. And they'll be gathering more and more resources. With that being said, and everything, since they're scuttling it from various different ones out here and arming them with various different ones out here, they've got transponders from China, Malaysia, East Timor, Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Burma, India, Bangladesh. Makes a lot of little chips and other stuff. People up here, very religious, so long as you know some of the language. Just everything here is agrarian farmer. There's lots of minerals in these, and you have piracy mining all the time in these out through here. Just like illegal miners finding, quartz rift veins with a drone still out in Australia. Now with that, you're going to be like, well, don't they stop at Antarctica or somewhere? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. These places have the most sophisticated submarines and basically a private military's hand and everything else for running drugs back and forth. This is all the tropics, so while they can bring in the rubber here, which you've noticed, tires have gone up a hell of a lot. They bring the rubber here and almost anything that you could have found in South America, grow it here. No pests, no problems, no nothing. And it's perfect. And then so super lucrative and everything else. And how all of this area has basically, had all these like maneuvers with the Chinese army and things went awry. This, that, or the other. People were injured, ships were damaged, and a navigational problem. And while we keep fussing over the Taiwanese Strait, the Philippines, the USA, please come and help defend, other stuff, the piracy situation is going to be the biggest thing because eventually we won't be able to tell, as that's for some of the far western, or even like here, it's really the far eastern powers of Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, like Iran, they would not be able to tell who or what it is because of all the local situation. So that brings the ships out there, and it's like China would be forced to change its military things over. So would India, so would these here, and they have to change that anyway because of the major piracy situations here. Now these super carriers for the pirates and stuff, they stay way far out here. And they look for their oil tankers, and they, siphon and skim East Timor oil, and they've got hidden oil derricks here and there. And they can supposedly refine on the ships now. This is absolutely crazy, you would say. But no, it's kind of like the movie Waterworld. Really does exist here. And people don't really want to talk about it or anything because it's really like Osama bin Laden underwater. But they don't have a main focal point leader, which is why they can hop between different islands and don't really have anything. Even if they hit the mainland, they can be doing real commercial business. It's like after so long, it's like the ship being gone from there, they can make their own super tanker runs or super carrier runs. So long as they keep it in the area and not really go through the Panama Straits, they're all good. you know, even if they hit South America or something, they'll unload all their cargo and make a bundle. And yeah, it takes a bundle to keep living here. And there are even like tribalistic people. It's even been reported to be one of the lost tribes of Israel to live only on the water and say they're cursed off of the land. I know I should remember that one somehow with Zebulun and everything else because it's the easy one to do for something, but no. And here with Taiwan, another little history story about how it's turned to Taiwan and how we're no longer looking at Taiwan and China not being together. There may have been certain things they will not genocide anyone there without fair and proper trials and showing of anything that has to do, because generally every time they overthrow an emperor here, which does have things all the way back to Native Americans, which I'm not going to go into that. I'm just going to say 3 little trading routes that did exist way back when. And anyway, China, whenever it changes over emperors, generally they found out that they have something to do with cannibalism, even as brutal as the emperors are and stuff. And they overthrow it with another group. Just like supposedly the Boxers couldn't have overthrown that, and they have another name for their minority, or that became the majority there. Even though it still is a minority, and technically they're the only ones that can have multiple kids. Even though everybody goes there from Italy and other areas and takes more advantage of it than the Boxers do, apparently. So they'll face the same thing the USA has had with the overpopulation by the Nazi forces and them choosing to become Christian and be Nazi or something else, saying, well, you can't really accuse me of anything in whatever we're doing here. As they kind of just squat there and have 1 or 2 people run off and do their stuff. So, anyway, with this, while we could say China now is the Portuguese Trade Federation, or because, it's China and it's a Portuguese word, and not the Boxers Independent Republic or whatever. Taiwan has changed from its imperial situation. So, and they're saying they're not going to do anything. Well, that's okay. And we understand that they have a name change and they are still the same government, just as the United States is the same government, as they'll admit to in some sort of treaty that we won't really be able to read all of it. Because at the start of World War II, we were the United States of Annapolis, the Founding Fathers tribe and everything else. And shortly after there, we changed ourselves to the United States of America, showing that we were part of the Americas and the West. There's a little history sample that's, it's kind of like it's not really important, just like Formosa and China. Kind of like Great Britain is now the UK. Now, and moving along with this and everything, the Native American thing that I'm going to mention is Native Americans did sail in the Pacific. And they did have 2 basic situations. One had a group that went directly left to right out of California and hit China in that area. They had another group, went around Alaska and kind of came around and went around the archipelagos and came back up the Gulf of California and so on. Another group came out of the Gulf of California, went along here. One group stayed on the top, one group stayed on the bottom, ended up over here in India. They went around there and then came back around. It's following the Ring of Fire and the islands, everything else. Another one goes straight across with their group. Not saying it's one tribe, not saying it's 20 tribes or anything else. I would put in something else about Dragon Balls, Kublai Khan, and the flight of situations from mountaintops to mountaintops and the Nazca lines, bringing in Australia and Uluru, and all of it going all the way around. But, I mean, there was flight back then, and some other things that I'm not really comfortable in talking about those stories or anything else, and the different situations out there over the things with Annapolis and how there are the civilized tribes, and then there's the survival tribe. If that national government unifies everything, does not survive. I mean, there was one that was out over here that's similar to this bottom one that comes around. And I know I'll probably be getting told I'm putting words in people's mouths, but their Arapaima was this one, and their group is no longer there, so in a way, the Arapaima is like the Annapolis, and not really going to say who's special out of that, kind of like how the Seminole would be from things further back. Anyway, so there was some flight and some stuff back and forth. That's why we have a connection over here, and we've had armistice with this and that, and we're trying our best to get along under the same old situations, even though there's hundreds of different ones that come up with separation, even between Japan and India, Japan and China, Vietnam, there, different islands out there, and everything that's shown in anime in the feudal situations. As it is, it's just what happens. Well, I'd love to sit here and continue more of this. And while this is the honest truth as best as I can put it, with the major kind of like terrorist military or terrorist navy staying down here, staying out of it, and kind of the peaceful cauldron of the Indian Ocean, which isn't really monitored even for waves or anything. They just have a few things put in after this big tsunami up here. Even Australia, they could skirt around on the bottom side of it between there and Antarctica, and no one would ever notice. And it's pretty vast and desolate out over in here in these areas. Now, while I'm probably sure that I've made somebody kind of a little angry tonight and talking about the Native American kind of situation, and I even know a little bit about how it would be with like tribalistic rebirth and special situations unto people. Granted, there's a couple of westerns. You could say I just watched those and I only know those from there. But to go on with more stuff towards down into other areas and Mesoamerica, that just did a part on this Southeast Asia area. It's where we're probably going to have another situation because they keep looking about Asian Pacific weapons. That's only that we're going to be using it over in something like Kosovo. Technically, our biggest ships in World War II, and they salvaged and tore them all up, and my grandmother even remembered them in the news, and they all been hushed up. They went down going towards Sicily and Sardinia. They could actually fire on the mainland Italy from that far away. Only thing they thought that was there was Gibraltar, and then the guns of Avignon. That was over in Turkey that could take down anything going through the Suez. They had guns a little bit bigger than that mounted on them, so they could really take out a lot of Italy if they hadn't taken them out. That's one of those classified battles I doubt they'll be letting out anytime in our lifetime. I do believe that's everything, so let's call it a wrap for the night. And it's nearly 2 a.m. here on the almost Central Time area. Not that close to it. But, yeah, we'll be going over the Ukraine situation here with news and everything else. And then I'll probably be going over some regular prepping stuff. And hopefully everything will be good for everyone, and we'll be able to, shall we say, move along. Or else survive. It's like Grandpa says, still breathing? Then make yourself breathe and keep moving. Don't quit. Twilight Prepper, signing off.